Brother Jerome, you already know you make us feel home, make us feel whole. Thank you. It's an honor to see you again.
Hey, brother, the honor is mine. Great to see you again. Great to
Uh, it's crazy to think that it's been almost a year since our first interview, and it's so beautiful to see how much has changed, and especially for all of our like personal journeys too. Like for me last year, I know for me, I felt like a lot of successes, but what brought me to this point was kind of the breaking point of feeling like it's not necessarily like it isn't enough. It's more of like I know what I can be if I get out of this pot. It's like a potted plant. You can't leave a plant in there for too long because it will only know what it's like to thrive in this pot. You have to slowly integrate it into bigger pots, into bigger vessels in order for it to thrive on a larger scale. So I
Mhm.
feel like, coming to Canada has been feeling like going to a bigger pot, and it feels honorable. And that's why I say it like this to present myself in this new fancy, nice pot, and sharing it with you and seeing how your pot has grown and seeing that all of the fruits that have come through your work and seeing all the people and lives that you touched. It's it's always so inspiring. And I know for the people that don't know, like I'm always thanking this man whenever I send him a message. I'm like, any message from you is a blessing. And I'm always reminded like all of those things. And yeah. So let's get started. I just wanted to give my salutations, all of my goodiness to you for this introduction.
Blessings, man. We've already begun. We've already started. We're already in here, man. You already started. So you feel, Dorian, that last year was one of those pots that you were in a pot last year. That's a great analogy, by the way. I don't hear that very often. That's an awesome analogy.
Mhm. Yeah, I found myself using a lot of plant and agricultural analogies, even when I was started back to making music a long time ago. I'm just getting a memory of an Uber drive that I had down in Tennessee. I was invited to a work party, and it was a whole company that showed up, and we had like our own site for us to come together. We also promoted our music and stuff, which was super dope. And I just remember on the drive there, just talking to him a lot of agricultural things, talking about how like we are these trees that are blooming out, but a lot of the time we are growing in places where people want to chip us away, where they want to cut off our branches, or
Mm.
they deprive us of our soil, they cover us over with concrete and it becomes harder to grow. And I feel, and that's why I felt the pot analogy was so valid, is because I'm also not discrediting that I did move to a bigger plot. Hey, Afi, it's a pleasure to see you. It's a friend that I recently made here in Canada, which, by the way, I've met so many beautiful spirits here and so many wonderful individuals, and I I honestly wouldn't change anything like in the world. I'm happy that I went through what I did last year because that's what brought me to this year. And I'm thankful for all of the other plots that I've, accumulated and grown out of in my life. And even now, just like as I meditate on that term, like it helps me get closer to the gratitude
Mm.
of that experience that I'm currently having now.
Right.
Because if it wasn't for those, I wouldn't be here.
Gratitude, man. I love that you have gratitude for the big and the small, the good, the not so good, gratitude for it all. You have
Hmm.
gratitude for everything, and it's just really a sign of maturity that you can have that gratitude and just to keep that attitude. Because when you were mentioning, Dorian, like the places that are cutting your branches, and like messing with your soil and cutting your branches, I felt that. I've
Mm.
definitely felt in that environment. I've definitely felt like I've been in that environment a few times in my life. So what was that environment for you when you felt like your branches were being pruned, against your will?
Mm. Mm. So I would say. let's think of a bonsai, right? And theoretically, bonsais are cut and pruned and adjusted in their soils. So I feel growing up, I was a bonsai, right? Like I was cut into this musician, this outspoken person that loves to bring people together, even like getting involved in church and different volunteering programs and et cetera, growing up until college. Now in college is when, I'm away from the, family nest. I'm further out and I have to rely on myself, my friends, my professors. And there became a point where I got so tunnel visioned into succeeding, into success, this idea of success.
Right.
And it honestly puts you in a spiral because I ended up finding out I'm not the one taking care of my bonsai anymore. I'm now over here kind of wilting and not, cutting off those pieces and layers that should be removed, just like how you talk, we're promoting and fasting and eating healthy, that there are things that we need to cleanse out. And I wasn't doing that. I was finding myself in a cycle of a lot of self-hate and a lot of doubt and saying, I could have done this, I should have done this. And crazy enough, it actually brings me to a passage from the book Anger by Thich Nhat Hanh. I keep getting his name wrong, but I know he's an incredible author. And what he does is in all of his books, he always finds a way to bring in Buddhism with Christianity. And in this particular book, not only does he talk about like in foods, like I love that quick snippet from PETA that you shared about how birds get their beaks chipped off and how
Mm,
it prevent like you're eating that suffering. You're feeling that suffering. It's transmuted to you. That energy has to go somewhere.
mhm,
And but to move on, and that's what was happening to me at that time. I was absorbing a lot of bad juju, a lot of energy that wasn't allowing me to grow. I was stuck in this pot when I knew I needed to get out.
yeah,
And so that's when I found yoga. That's when I found meditation and really took it seriously because I realized that was a moment in my life where I can just give myself thanks for showing up and giving myself
mhm,
peace and knowing that I don't have to push myself to the ends of the earth in order for me to succeed. I was brought here to live, to be the eyes and the ears and the consciousness of the universe, as I've been told, and and carrying that. So then moving from the college life back home with my family, that's when COVID hit. But it was a good time for us at that time because it brought me much closer to my sister, my mother,
mhm,
and a little bit of my father too. And during that time, I realized I'm getting myself into good work. I'm making good money. Shoot, I'm actually making more money than I would have made being a teacher,
mm,
So that really surprised me. And there came a point where now I started to feel the stresses of reaching my limits of the pot that I was in.
mm, mm,
I was in the job for a while, and just like how you found Neo, I found a little cat while I was working this job. Her name was Locks, and the amount of love, Jerome, that filled up the house, the way that everybody's energy shifted when she was there was just beautiful. It was just like what you were talking. It was meant to be. They chose you.
mhm.
Even though my dog literally went to the bushes and picked her up, and I had no idea.
Oh,
What a beautiful memory. But then I was kind of pushing myself again, just like in college at work, and I was taking on a lot more than I could handle.
mm,
And one day while I was working, I went outside and I saw that Locks didn't make
mm,
it.
mm.
And that was the most I cried in a long time.
Wow,
And
wow.
I really had to start thinking of my life, thinking that things that are this beautiful don't deserve to be neglected and be forgotten about because that energy had its purpose. And after a period, I decided to leave, and that's when I started to travel the country again as a volunteer to feed
Mhm,
kids. And it was so funny because like during that time, I was also really in my bag of watching what I ate, how I was sleeping, how I was meditating, incorporating my yoga without the certifications or without the studying.
right.
And that's the one thing I really want to kind of circle back to when I get there. But so when I started traveling, it was an honor to start putting together meals that reminded people of home, meals that where they ate it, they reminded of their energy that they had when they've been working so hard and diligently all day on the marching band
Mm,
field. because that's what you do all summer in this organizations.
Mm-hmm.
You're traveling the country with a group of 200 kids. You're being taught by all of these adults that have had the similar experiences to
Mm-hmm.
you. And I just got to be a part of that by being myself, sharing good food, sharing my wisdoms, and being with other people that match my wavelengths. And that was an honor.
Yeah.
And so, and that's where Ascend really started building up. That's when I started collaborating with other artists to help build together logos, get ideas for
Mm-hmm.
websites. And that's when I started designing clothes a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, that's how I slowly started getting introduced to you, Nabiha, and the whole fasting community, the whole Pranamic
Mm-hmm.
family. And it's, and I'm so thankful that all of those things happen, like we were talking about, all the transfers. So when I came back from my travels, that's when I decided to, okay, you know what? I've taken quite a break from school. Let me go ahead and do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so happy I did it. I took a risk and I started getting involved in things like SGA with what's happening in the community of the college and also expressing my art a lot more
Yeah.
too. Like I remember in my environmental science class, we were given an art project to do, and I was not expecting that. I was like, "Oh, okay, cool," you know. So everybody comes in with like these very different like mediums of how they incorporated plastic into theirs, how they use natural pieces to put together other
Mm-hmm.
structures. And at the time, my friend Malachi, who also goes by Swiftness,
Oh.
he he had released a song with an artist named Chakra,
Mm-hmm.
and it was called Satellite. And I knew when I first heard it, I felt something. I couldn't stop listening to it. Like that's how good it was. Like how it just hit me so like spiritually that I slowly started incorporating my video editing skills and started putting together a music video.
Mm-hmm.
And that was before the project was announced. So when I realized I was coming up, I was like, oh, wait a minute. I have something that I can present.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to. And this is something I also feel is something I've been learning in this journey of sharing other people's art. We don't need to confine ourselves into our pops.
Right.
We don't need to be hip hop. We don't need to be rock. We don't need to be R&B. We can be everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's whatever you choose it to be. And what I did at that time was I just fell into my pot and I gave it all of its love and nurturing and growth and stuff. So when I presented it, it felt so different. And even I even watched it yesterday too because it's been a long time. It's been almost a year.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, wow, dude, like your editing skills, the way that everything is being conveyed, like who is this guy, you know? And and then that's how I started putting out the clothes, and that's how I met you and started getting interviewed. And what also blows my mind too, and I was going to put it in our Qigong chat recently, was from day one to a week of Qigong,
Mm-hmm.
and the results are just so profound. Like staying with this practice and being dedicated to this time of just showing up and giving yourself all this love and grace. And something that my mom always like tells me is like, oh, remember to pray. And whenever I'm doing Qigong, like that's my prayer.
Wow.
Like that's the time because you say it all like in the inside this ball, put in the joy, put in the gratitude, think of your loved ones, think of all the sentient beings in the world. Isn't that a prayer? Like, isn't that what we go to church for so we can share? And I'm just so thankful that all of these things have culminated to this point. But I want to get back to your initial question.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what was the part that recently I felt like I was growing out of? Well, I started the business, I started vending. That's when I started performing my music for the first couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
And I really started falling in love with the community. This community of creatives was the new pot.
Right.
And I realized as I was in this one, it was a little bit different. It wasn't like the other pots that I've been in before.
Mm-hmm.
So when I tried to bring my pot home with me, now that I think about it, that's an analogy for some of the people out there. But when I brought my pot home with me,
Mm-hmm.
they the people that had me in the previous pot, or I should say, helped me nourish the previous pot. They didn't see what was coming out of this. They didn't see the vision of what this bonsai was becoming.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when the confusion started settling in.
Mm.
Who am I? Am I is what I'm doing really valid? Is it worth it? And to be in places where they cut your branches and they trim off your leaves or you pull their weeds, which can actually be nourishing to the
Mm.
environment, they don't see that they're doing more harm than good. It's
Mm.
out of a place of love, sure, but they don't see the damage that it slowly does when you made what was once a garden into a lawn, you know?
Right.
Now it's deprived. There is less nutrition to go around. There's less places for things to nourish and grow. So one day I was at this job I just really didn't like.
Mm.
It like Jerome, it literally brought me like physical, emotional, spiritual pain.
Mm.
And the fact that I tried to explain that to other people and they didn't get it and they just kept telling me, keep working,
Mm.
keep doing this. But you're not telling me to keep doing that with my business. You're not going to keep telling me to stay creative and to be with other creatives.
Mm.
That doesn't
Right.
sound right.
Right.
To you, it makes sense because that's the path you followed, and that's a sense of maturity that I'm still developing in order to understand where they're coming from. So it doesn't develop into hate, because what hate derives from is a lack of communication and understanding. So I'm really trying to bridge that gap to understanding, like, yes, they wanted the best for me. I get it. But at the same time, just to get a dollar when I'm feeling like this is not worth it.
Right.
So one day I went to a kava bar that which we have so many around in Florida, and it blows my mind that they don't have kava bars here in Canada, but yet they promote things like mushrooms and marijuana at 24-hour, time frames,
Wow.
but yet they don't have other modalities for people to also like experience. But
Mm.
anyway, let's get into that point, but we'll get there. So I was at my coffee bar. I was working on some music and stuff because that's what I usually do when I'm in a rut. I try to create rather than sit in the hate. And something in my brain was just like, why don't you look at some tickets, to go somewhere, go on a little vacation. You got some money. And so I started looking around. And at first, like London popped up, like the UK London, because there is a London here in Canada. So I have to actually clarify, which is weird. But then I realized it was pushed out all the way to like January 11th. So I was
Mm.
like, I honestly want something like right now. Like
Right.
if I were to leave right now, where would I go?
Right.
And Toronto
Mm.
came up, and Jerome. I was looking at that screen. Look, let me reenact it for you. Let me reenact it for you because I have
Okay.
my laptop. I was looking at my screen and I'm just staring at it, thinking, what do I do? What about home? What about family? What about all my friends? What about the business I've just developed? Fuck it, fuck it, fuck it. We bought it. We bought it. We did it. And then I had to tell what is it, my friend that was working at the bar, because if I don't, then I could back out on myself, and I don't want to do that.
Okay.
So I told my friend Jake, I just bought a ticket to Canada. He was like, "Oh, really? That's what's up. So
Mm.
what's the plan? What's the move?" And I swear, divine timing. He just coincidentally happened to be watching all of these shows about immigration and what it's like to go through the process of getting your visas and etc.
Mhm.
And he really gave me a rundown as to kind of what to expect when I land. And it did. It was a huge help. So then when I was in the process, I was being patient, I was being mindful of my intentions that I'm here to find work, here to find opportunities. And I walked out, and by the time that I walked out and I saw the snow, I remember videotaping myself smiling. And honestly, when I see it, like I asked myself at that time, when was the last time you smiled like that,
Right.
man? Good on you. And then luckily, because with Instagram stories and such, like I review those from time to time, and I'm reminded of those times I did smile like that.
Mhm.
So I was happy to be in that place again.
Yeah.
So yeah, and now I'm in this new pot in Toronto,
Mhm.
and I feel like I've been flourishing. Like my health feels so well, and I also feel a lot more in tune with my body's intuition of catching when it's feeling a little degrading, and I now have a better understanding of what I can do to feel better.
Mhm.
Granted, it's always trial and error. It's just like what they say with anything, it's a lifelong practice.
Right. Right.
So, but I'm but it makes me proud that I have become so much more in tune with myself.
Right.
And now that I'm here, I've just kind of been sharing that.
Yeah.
And it's honestly kind and I don't want to actually ask this to you, like when you go out and you're at events or mixers or etc., like what's it like when people tell you that you've never met that are just like, Jerome, there's something about your aura, there's something about your energy that's so exciting and welcoming and warm. Thank you. Like, because that's what I've been receiving and from strangers.
Mhm.
And it's just, it's sometimes mind-boggling, you know? I think it's mind-boggling to us because we don't, it's a combination of we haven't heard that enough from the places that we were and the pots that we were in.
Mm.
And it's also because maybe, just maybe, we haven't given ourselves enough of that as well, you know? So now to ask you that, what's it like when you experience that?
Yeah, very true, Dorian. Very true, brother, because I remember, being at different odd jobs and hearing things like that from coworkers who were just observing me, just making observations and just acknowledging what they were feeling when they were around me. And this was, spaces that weren't as spiritual as the spaces that I'm in today. So they weren't really saying things like your aura or your energy. They just kind of got a sense or a feeling around me, and they were wondering if I was vegan or if I was a vegetarian or if I was the kind of person that engages in meditation, and if I was concerned with raising my vibration. Like, they were wondering things like that. Do you meditate, huh? You're one of those people, right? You are you vegetarian? Are you vegan? And they're just asking me these things, and I didn't even know why they were asking me. But sure enough, I was, meditating, and I was heading in that trajectory of lightening up my diet. So naturally, I feel like people were receptive and they were picking up on that energy, whether they understood it or not, whether they knew it or not. It was almost like your presence becomes grounding. And yeah, it's like your presence becomes like medicine for some people who they don't know that they're ill inside. They feel something inside, but when you come around, it's like a pill for their illness, and they feel your medicine emanating from you. They feel the peace and the joy and just the inner contentment. And they get to let go of resentment when they feel your contentment, you know? So when you were talking about success, brother, that's a big one because, you know, so many people have different definitions of this little word called success. And you mentioned that, things that you might have been chasing or not really embracing back then. What do you feel you would define it as today with your perception now? How would you define this word, success?
Mm. It's the ongoing practice. That's the best way to put it. It's it's your wealth. It's finding your real wealth.
Mm,
Like for me, like even though I don't have a lot in my bank account right now, I feel so wealthy. I feel so at peace. I feel so welcomed. And I think that's the biggest part too. And I felt that in a lot of what you were talking about. It's the part of being welcomed. It's the part of being in a place that you can call your sanctuary.
mhm,
And mind you, I've been hopping, between Airbnbs and different housing, it's been strange, not to have like settled, but what I've been learning in even like through the transit systems and such, you learn your balance, you learn the places that are going to be more growing for you, the places where you're not in the basement and you're stuck in darkness. And but if you leave on the light, you can be trapped in that kind of cycle, and it kind of brews
mhm,
like a it just brews, and it's not, it festers,
mhm,
but like our gut, and but when you go out and you're in the light and you're moving and you're connected with that, like yesterday I did qigong outside because it was finally just a beautiful bright day,
mhm,
and we're in, let me tell you, Jerome, like getting the practice in from in here versus out there is
mhm,
just like crisp. It's like when the kids talk about, oh, it's just like a Sprite at McDonald's, that kind of crisp. But that's what success has become to me. Like right now, I feel successful.
mhm,
And what I'll tell you what success is also not. Also believing that you have to do more to in order to become successful.
Mm.
And that's kind of the thing that I've been learning here too. Because of course, oh, that's the other funny thing. When I got the ticket to go to Toronto, I also had work the next day. I immediately sent a text to my boss. I was like, hey, thank you, but no thank you. I quit.
Oh,
And
you did it like that?
just like
Whoa.
that. And
Oh, snap. You're like, sorry, I'm just, I'm not coming back. There were no 2 weeks notice, no 2 weeks. Yeah.
Mm.
You were
No,
like,
and what's funny is that I actually like some time prior, I actually said I wanted to quit.
mm,
Like, and I told that to my boss directly, but he asked me to come into the office. He gave me his talk or whatever it was that you want to call it. And again, like I respect that. I understand where he's coming from because he's earned where he's at because of what he's
mm,
doing. And he sees that he can, share that with me. And I appreciate that, it's like when anybody on the street is like sharing food with somebody on the corner, or sharing a blanket. It's a lot like that, But sometimes the blanket's a little stinky, the food is too greasy, whatever it may be, and and it's not going to be good for you.
mm,
So when I got here, I didn't have any jobs lined up, and I also all of the clothes, all the merchandise, and everything that I built up in the past year, I donated it. I literally the same day after I bought my ticket, and I was invited out to a friend, and in that neighborhood there was a vintage thrift shop that was pretty big in West Palm Beach, and I just dropped it all off there. I said, if I'm leaving because I know I want something bigger. And as big as this has been here, I also want to trust that it's going to be in good hands, that other people will find it. They will resonate with the messages of don't hope, plan, with the art from all the other artists that I've met and etc. And to just remember to always ascend. But that's now in West Palm Beach. It'll stay there.
mhm.
That's its residency.
Okay.
So now I'm building my new residency here. So to go back to it, like I don't have a job. Like I got here with no job, no plan, kind of, and I immediately spent a lot of my days just like cafes, applying for different jobs, even old jobs too, and working on my resume.
Mhm,
And in a way, I like that. Like it challenged me because I wanted to see what does it take for somebody that doesn't know me and judge me from some prompts, from my experiences, to see success in
mhm,
me and give trust in me to say, hey, we want you. And
mhm,
it even made me realize what I was also looking for at the time. At the time, I was always trying to go for positions that I've already
right.
done chapters I've already completed. It's like when you're playing a game and you go back to like those first areas where like now if you hit them with your weapon, like they get down in one hit, but you remember the times where it took you 10 hits, a couple of rolls, you had to break a shield or two.
Mhm,
So that shows you like you're bigger than that now.
yeah.
And I started realizing that because a lot of my insecurities during that time when I was getting rejected a lot was because of that. I'm like, why? Why don't they see that I'm worth it?
Right.
And then I started asking myself that, Dorian, why don't you see that you're worth it? Why
Mm,
don't you see that you can, with all this experience that you have, it's not about building a resume for other people. It's about writing your novel. It's about writing your autobiography, your business history, so that when people see it, they don't see just a piece of paper with experience.
right.
They see the experience. They see the
Right.
journey, you know? And what I want to inspire from that is people to then, when they see that and be like, yo, I have another destination that I think would be really beneficial to your journey.
Mhm,
And seeing that difference from, hey, we want you at this job so you can do whatever, to then being like, I want to do everything in my power to support you on your journey. Those are very two different things.
for sure.
And that brings me back to now, going back to the question of, what is
Mhm,
success? So I took my time. I looked at different artist communities, different
mhm,
studios, different art, music groups and etc. And I've met so many people and I've been lucky enough to start working with one of them.
mhm,
And I love to continue to keep that energy. And because a lot of it is because we have to find people that, just like how you're talking about when you were in the plots of going through different jobs, odd jobs, but people were picking up on your vibrancy to
Mhm.
now being in spaces where people understand it to where like it doesn't have to be breaking down anymore. It's already understood, you
Right.
know? So I'm really honored to have been going through this journey and to meet the people that I have met and to accomplish as much as I've accomplished in the past three weeks to a month
Absolutely.
now. So yeah.
Absolutely, man. What a journey, brother. You know, what a journey, what a time just to align with your purpose and just to be more in service with where you're going, where the energy is flowing, and to tap into your inner knowing of just that assurity, that self-confidence, that self-worthiness, that self-esteem, that self-image, that self-care. You know, we talk about the self-love and just to be able to look at yourself in the mirror and to ask yourself those questions that you're not being received by someone else. Well, you're wondering, am I receiving myself? Like, am I acknowledging myself? Am I loving myself like I'm wishing that love from someone else? So when you mentioned as well, brother, Dorian, you mentioned like the video game analogy of, when you're breaking your shield or it's taking you 10 hits and then when you level up and now it's only taking you one hit when it used to take you multiple hits. What was the video game that was in your mind when you were talking about that? Because I had one in my mind, but what was the video game in your mind?
I think we both knew secretly, like, because I've heard it before in some of your videos, is
Dark
Dark Souls. Like, yeah,
Souls.
you see, you already know. No, and it's crazy too. Like, I recently, and not to get political, it's actually a pure entertainment. Like,
Okay.
there was a run through of the first Dark Souls, and it had the it had the presidents like speaking. So like you had Trump, you had Obama, you had
Oh wow.
Biden and them, but it was all AI
Okay.
generated. And so they made quips, you know what I mean, about like the political landscape or whatever. But the
Mm,
real thing that they did was they shared the lore. So
mm,
Barack was the person that actually kind of like shared the lore as like accurately and openly as
mm.
possible to Joe. Joe is the one who's been playing the whole
Okay.
game, and Trump is the one who's kind of like being really funny but insightful too.
I see.
And there's actually even a portion where he said something really motivational. I know it's just the AI
Mm,
thing and the prompt of whoever typed it, but still,
mhm,
shout out to you for that motivation, man. But what I realize is that so the whole journey of Dark Souls for the uninitiated
yeah.
is that you are something called an undead or a hollow,
Right.
and your job essentially in this world is to either keep the light going, the cycles that have stayed the same, that have kept the world as it
Mm,
is, or you bring in the age of darkness. You bring in this, you become the king of this new realm. And although it has unlimited potential, that also goes the same kind of like what we're talking about with life and our journeys, like both the good and the bad, the unpredictable, the chaotic. So, and it's up to you to really just decide what that is for
yeah.
you. Do you, and for me, and I think this actually better expresses like why I left too. I've been playing that same game of Dark Souls
Mm,
in my life for way too long. I've been rekindling the light for so many
wow.
years, and I realize I need to go into the void.
Mm,
I need to experience the darkness. I need to see what's in this place that has untapped potential.
mm,
And you realize that void is you, and you have to be the harbinger of that.
mhm,
And it inspired me like seeing an AI generated couple of presidents playing the whole first thing of Dark Souls. Like I never would have thought I would have learned so much like spiritually, and that's what even gives me such an appreciation for the arts, like for programming, for
mm,
all these mathematics and etc. And that's what really brought me into doing my current
mhm.
promotions, which is just sharing artists from all walks of life,
For sure.
because we've all been there. We've all been in positions where we've been like, hey, I see your energy, I see what you're doing and your potential. And so here's our payment plan so
Mm,
you can achieve this thing and get to your goal,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Wrong. And that kind of brings me back to what I was saying a little earlier about when I was really into my bag of meditation, of yoga, and eating healthy, is because during that time it felt freeing. But the moment that I signed up for certifications, it stopped feeling like that.
Mm.
And at first, I blamed myself a lot. I was like, oh my gosh, like I was studying it a lot. I was, so into it. But all of a sudden, it doesn't feel pure anymore. I
Okay.
think that's what it is.
Some,
And actually, and I think it's kind of going to lead to the question that you're about to ask, but what's crazy is that I was at a studio recently and some random lady walked in and I said hello. And I also mentioned that they host yoga up there. And she's like, oh, I used to do a lot of yoga. I used to travel to India and I used to experience all of these incredible teachers that Ram Dass learned from and a lot of the greats have learned from. And I started telling her that I'm also getting my certification. I'm building my way to it. And she goes, honey, that's good. That's good. I just ask that you don't monetize it.
mm,
And that's the thing that I've been telling myself for so long, and not just me, but other people that I've met too, like other artists. And when she said that, it hit me. I was like, that's why. That's why it feels so hollow. That's why it feels so oversaturated when you go out to buy a yoga mat and it costs you $100. Come on, man. Like it shouldn't cost you anything. It shouldn't, and that's why I also really have been enjoying my Qigong is because I literally just have to bring myself. I don't need a mat. I don't need anything else. Like that's as freeing as it can be. I can go outside and do it,
right.
and other people see me, and they may point, they may laugh, they may be wondering whatever it is, but I'm enjoying myself, and it is freeing. And just like how you talk too, how we share this energy with other people. I also make it a goal. Like I used to do this last year in my neighborhood when I would go running, is I would always, whenever I would pass by a car or see somebody, I would always do one of these, like La Paz or Peace be with you or Namaste.
Mhm,
And and there was a point where that I also stopped doing that. I stopped going on my runs. I stopped sharing that energy.
mhm,
But when I came here, everything is walkable. You're going on public transit and stuff. So when I go out, I love just doing my best to be like, a little nod or a smile or hey, have a good day. I remember this one lady, she did like one of these. And but it's so entertaining to me
mhm,
because like I kind of just want to see whose day, do I make. And I also love it when people do the same back.
right.
I love it when the moment that we catch eyes, like, and I'm kind of like depleting a little bit and they smile, I immediately smile.
Exactly.
Like that's the good energy and that's the good things that it's about. And just like we were just talking about, it's free. Like you can be free of all of that suffering and all of that pain and all those doubts that you have if you just look up and you might just see somebody that sees you
Mhm,
and rather than scurrying away from it, embrace it.
right.
Like it is scary though. Like I don't know what other people have been through and that's something I've really been trying to better like process as I've been here too. I've recently been listening to the audiobook for The Body Keeps the Score.
Okay.
Such a wonderful book, and I'm happy it's an audiobook because don't get me wrong, like I like reading, but when it comes to things like that, like I need like a a draw, a pull, like fiction.
Mhm,
That's the real thing that I needed.
okay.
And, and speaking of, I actually have a book recommendation
Okay.
that I recently picked up,
Okay.
and it's called All the Animals on Earth. Like it's a science fiction book,
Who's it by?
and
Who's the author?
oh, Mark Sampson. Thank you for
Okay.
asking.
Mark Sampson. Awesome.
Yes. And I just picked it up because at first, like, because they have those like public pick up a book libraries or whatever in the neighborhood,
Mhm,
and I was just like, oh, this looks interesting. Let me go check it out. And finally, yesterday, after spending a wonderful day with a friend of mine, I decided I was like, you know what, my laptop is dead. Let me start reading this book, right? And it's about it's about the animals of the world becoming human.
Hmm.
So rather than, because a lot of the apocalypses that we've been told in science fiction are like, oh, there's no more kids on Earth, the population is dying, etc. Nah, this is the opposite.
Okay.
The population has doubled, tripled, or quadrupled in
Oh,
size. And I'm only in like a few chapters in, and I love the balance between like the world building and personal building of the main characters, and it's just got me excited to like keep reading. And I think that's something that's so important for people too, is to just keep giving, keep different things a
yeah.
try. Eventually you'll find the one thing where you don't want to put it down. You just
Right.
want to keep going and it excites you and you want to share it with others.
Absolutely. Absolutely, brother. And thank you for that message, Dorian, because,
There was somebody that
what
was
you,
asking, so I just wanted to share it real quick. All
awesome.
the Animals on Earth by Mark Sampson.
Awesome. Beautiful, beautiful, brother. And what you said at the very end, Dorian, about just to keep going, just to that you'll soon one day, like you'll find a reason to keep going. Like you'll find what it is that you're meant to do, that you need to do, and just to keep going no matter what. And that's actually, because thank you for the breakdown you gave of Dark Souls with the light and the darkness. That's actually what that game gave me the most, as I was going through that game. Just keep going, you know, like just keep going. That was it. That was the message that I got when I played Dark Souls. There was never a game before that game. There was never a game that pissed me off more than that game. Like I got so angry. I was This is how angry I was. You ever seen Ren and Stimpy? There was
Yes, I have. I
there
know
was
for
a
sure.
cart yeah, there was a cartoon called Ren and Stimpy. For those who don't know, it was an old cartoon. And the character Ren, Stimpy was like, the character that was kind of, yeah, he was
Aloof.
like that character. But Ren would get so angry at Stimpy. There were times he got so angry, Dorian, he started laughing. He was so angry. He just started laughing, right? That's what this game made me do. I was like, "Are you serious? I died again." And it reminds you. It doesn't let you off the hook. It lets you know, big red letters, you died, right? Again, and you had to start, and on top of everything, you just spent hours getting all the way over there, and
Building
then
this income, this souls, all of that. You're thinking, oh, I'm gonna level up.
and you lost it all. You lost everything.
Not even to a boss either. It'd be like the most random mimic or whatever,
Just
and
a
you're like,
little guy, just a little henchman. And so just to know, like, oh my God, are you serious? But then you have to find something inside. You have to dig down deep inside to say, you know what? I'm gonna get up again. I'm gonna try this again. I'm gonna go there again. I'm gonna do it again. I'm gonna beat him. I'm gonna fight him again. And this time will be different. I don't know how I'm gonna do it. All I know is it will be done. Right? So that's what that game gave me, the it will be done factor. Like it's already done.
Mhm.
I don't care. You know what? I don't care how. I just know it's gonna get done.
Exactly.
I don't care how long it takes. I'm gonna be up all night long until it's done.
Until it's
And
done.
that's what it gave me. So thank you for bringing back, that memory of that game because, man, my goodness, especially earlier, you were speaking as well about, the people that we surround ourselves with, Dorian, that just give us that added boost or just that kind of lift us and help to shift us and gift us with the companionship of accountability. Because there's one thing to be, responsible. They say responsibility is our response to the ability. But when you have that accountability partner, you mentioned Jake, and you said that Jake is somebody that you know, when you're going out and you're doing something, you can count on Jake to be accountable for you when you feel like sometimes you can't do it for yourself. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. Mm. So I think you already know what it is. It's the ascenders. Like you have to assemble with the ascenders.
Mm.
And I think the important part too along the way is, and this is another part of it, and I don't really promote it a whole lot, but recently my somebody tried to make a duplicate account and try to get my information.
What?
And yeah, it blew my mind. Um, but one thing that I realize is that pretenders are real. You know, there are people, there are mimics out there that, you think that you're going to get loot or chest or something valuable, but in reality, it's something that's going to damage you and
Mm.
can hurt you.
Wow.
And with that, I would say I'm a very trusting person. That's the kind of person that I've been for a very long time. I always try to give everybody the benefit of the doubt because, just like they teach in Buddhism, everybody has the Buddha within them. And that's actually what inspired a lot of what I do at Ascend
Mm.
is I remind people that you're Ascenders too. Like, we all have the ability to be Ascenders. We just have to know it and believe it because if you don't, if you're not believing it, you're pretending. You're pretending that you're doing all of these other things in order to like fit in boxes, to fit in pots that you don't want to be in, to be at places that are draining, but you want to be where the real light is, where you feel
Mm.
invited and enlightened.
Mm.
So that's what it's really about. And I'm very thankful to have met so many people that have been those ascenders for me,
Mm.
and I can be that for them. And surprisingly, I remember when I left a note in my room. So I had like two mirrors. I had one on like against the wall, and one that once you walk into a room, you see yourself. And I thought that was really important to me, like when I started rearranging my room and started making it more spacious. And on that window, once he came in, I just wrote, "I'm in Canada."
Yeah, I'm what?
I'm in Canada.
Okay, okay, okay. Mm.
So then when they turn around and they see the other one is the actual message of like, hey, this is what's going on. I had to leave because I need to go. I need to experience my own failures. I need to push myself and see what I am capable of. Just like Gon, and for Hunter x
Mm.
Hunter, he was in a place where he was thriving. He was great. Everybody knew who Gon was,
Mm.
but he knew that he had to go out there in order to find his dad because his dad is doing other things much bigger and grander than Gon can ever dream of.
Wow.
So how do I get there? I have to go out in the world, I have to go experience it, and I have to train. I have to find the people that are going to help me build my nen and find my strength. And you go through your ups and your downs, your I don't want to say wins and losses. I want to say your gains and your losses because I'm thinking more of in terms of like life, in terms rather than a material thing,
Mm.
or a momentary thing. But that's kind of what I had to do. I had to let go of the people that. There we go. Let's bring it back. So there was a point where I said that when I was in college, I was finding myself saying a lot of "I wish," "I could have," "I should have," etc.
Mm.
For a long time. My dad was like that, and I believe he's a very successful man. He has a wonderful family, he has a wonderful home, and but it just breaks my heart that, I hear that so much from him that it breaks my heart again, knowing that I was doing that too, that I found myself in that despair. And now that I think about it, like just knowing that that's how I felt when I'm saying those things, I can't imagine how he feels when he's saying those things.
Right.
And and I love him to death, but the thing is that I want them to realize like I can't be stuck pretending anymore, pretending that I could be doing more things when I know I can.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go out and do those things. And I networked with the right people. And even while I've been up here, I've made it, a part of my goal to always create the bridges from Florida all the way to Toronto.
Mhm.
Like there was this event that we recently did that was super dope, like such a vibe, so
Mm.
many cool like artists that came to perform, but the setup it was like something out of a show. Like if you were to get just the right cameras and angles,
Mm.
BET would be all over that, you know what I mean? And I
Right.
know the people that are in those industries now because of me going out and finding out, and now just saying, hey, these are the opportunities that are happening here. So if you come here, just know that you're not going to end up like me when I first got here and not know
Mhm.
anything. Like
Mhm.
I want to be the person where it's like, hey, like these are where the other ascenders are.
Right.
Don't go over there because those are where the pretenders are. You know what I mean? No offense to those. Like, I'll support your
Yeah.
business and stuff like that, but on a different scale. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
I see. I see. You know, I love also just what you talked about earlier with Hunter x Hunter. You know, Hunter x
Mhm,
Hunter was one of the animes that one of my good friends put me on years ago. And when I watched that anime, I mean, it blew me away. It blew me away where they took that anime and it escalated. Things escalated really quickly. And I mean, but they set the foundation, they set the groundwork with the Nen system and just the energy system and the characters. And you know, in that world, Hunter x Hunter, they had different archetypes, like
mhm,
different specialties, different styles of characters. And you know, like you had Hisoka, you had Killua, you had Gon, you had, you know, Kurapika, you had Netero, you had all these people. There were enhancers, there were conjurers, there were specialists.
mhm.
So, what would you say, you know, with all those archetypes, what would you call your archetype if you had one from that show, Hunter x Hunter? What would be the one that you gravitate towards?
I feel conjurer. That felt
Conjurer?
very strong. Yeah. Like I was asking myself specialists and all these other things too. I've definitely met
Mm,
specialists. You know, that's incredible. Like there was this event that we went to where the studio was incredible. They had two re professional recording studios. They
mm,
had areas where you could do photography,
mm,
lounge, and they also had a live band. And the reason why I bring it up is because this one guy that's been running this particular studio.
mm,
He's literally playing all of the
mm,
instruments, and he's also helping with the audio equipment too.
mhm.
I'm like, yo, that's a specialist right
Right.
there. So for me, I feel I'm a conjurer, and I say that, and I want to use Full Metal Alchemist is really good. We could talk about alchemy and the, anyway. But with I say conjurer because I remember when I was getting ready for my performance last week. I went upstairs and I was just practicing. I had a lot of privacy. That whole floor was just open, but there were windows, right? I was mainly using the window to see my reflection, to kind of see what what my look was, what my energy is, how do I want to come off. And then before I know it, I start seeing things moving like in the window, and I'm like, what is that? So changed my focus, and across the street, at an apartment complex across the street on the second floor
Mhm.
there were people watching me practice for my
Wow.
set. And they were getting hyped too. They were
Yeah.
dancing and everything, just like what I was.
Yeah.
And when I went downstairs, I started pointing downstairs.
Mhm.
And so I go downstairs, I'm working the door because that's also a part of my work. I'm helping out, I'm greeting guests, saying bye to people. And I kid you not, Jerome, these random strangers that I've never met in my life just showed up to the door, like five, seven people. And I'm like, yo, you guys actually came. And and after seeing the performance too, and seeing how like the people were moving and getting in tune with the music and stuff,
Mhm.
that's what I feel like brings me to Conjurer. And even with that, like I think my biggest thing is like being that reminder for people. Like me going out in the street and smiling to people, just giving them that reminder that they're seen. Just like a year ago when I was putting up my shirt with the I love you, but with the I, the heart, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
But anyway,
Mhm.
but now embodying that, and it feels different when you embody that. Now you're going to audiences and reminding them to always
Right.
ascend. You're reminding them that they are ascenders.
Right.
And I feel like conjuring that energy within people, that's just something so special that like I would never trade. I'm happy with the particular skill set and specialty that I've trained, a long time for.
Likewise, brother. You know, tremendous just testimony. I love the testimony and I love just what you've seen and the outcome, you know, that you've witnessed, not only within yourself, but in everyone else around you and the lives that you've touched and you've affected throughout your journey, and you've connected and reflected. Because, one of the last things, I could say about The Conjurer, one of the things I love about that show, Hunter x Hunter, is in a very subtle way, they use different dynamics that have big parallels for
Mhm.
life. It really actually applies, and there's a lot of application and utilization. Because when you talk about The Conjurer, there were characters like Karapika, where he can conjure up these chains, right? Yeah, like these chains
Oh
that can
yeah.
wrap around his opponents, but there's a specification that he places, or that he places on himself for these opponents, and it's like he only can use his ability on certain individuals.
Hmm.
And because he has set this limitation and this restriction and made this sacrifice,
Hmm.
right? To restrict his ultimate ability to only like maybe eight. What was the bandit? They were like these
Yeah, the
troop
troop.
these the
Yeah.
troop the spider
Mhm.
gang or something like that. There was a troop of gangs. This one gang, and he has a vendetta, and it's revenge and it's dark energy. But since he limits it to only a few individuals, it makes it so much more powerful because of the
Yes.
restriction, because of the limitation, because of the sacrifice. So that kind of parallels with our life, that a lot of the times, you know, we give things up to gain so much more. Like
Mm.
what would you sacrifice to gain it all? What would you let go to let more in, to go even further? What would you let go of? What would you release? And when I asked myself back in the day, what would I give up? What is one distraction? What is one counteraction? What is one thing that is derailing me, that I feel like is failing me, that I feel like would be ailing me, that if I let this go, more energy could flow? And I found out what that was for me, and that became my conjurer class in Hunter x Hunter. That allowed me to do a lot more, but it was through a perceived restriction that other people thought I was crazy.
Yeah.
They're like, you're gonna what? You're gonna give that up? Are you crazy? You will die. Don't you know you can die? Are you crazy? You're gonna stop doing what? You stopped what? And I said, you just don't know what
No.
I've gained. You only think about what I've refrained. You don't know what I've gained,
Mhm.
you know? So that was kind of like the lesson of Karapika that I got from Hunter x Hunter, that sometimes to go even further, you got to let go of what's holding you back, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah.
No, so true. Like, they tell you with that, that's people in your life. Those are things that you're currently doing, your habits, etc. And, especially as I want to say especially as, but for both men and women, I think everybody, we all have these things that we feel that we are tied down to because society says like, oh, it's normal.
Mhm.
Like you don't have to stop what you're doing. You can keep doing it. But they don't tell you that there's a price. Yeah, like it's so funny. Like there's actually this gaming building that's around this neighborhood that I'm at. And I'm pretty sure they also have like slots and stuff for gambling, etc. But what's crazy is that they also have a sign on the outside that says, don't gamble with your health, right?
Mhm.
And I'm like, well, what are you doing? But you know what I mean? You're having people that are putting some of them, who feel desperate and put down their livelihood to do that. But again, that I think that's also an individual thing. It's not necessarily that business's thing. And now that I think about it, because that's something I've noticed a lot here, is that there's a lot of buildings that are for lease and stuff, and we get a lot of condos that are being built up and et cetera. And I've also seen the amount of people that are on the streets. I've seen the prices that some people charge for a studio apartment. And it kind of makes you realize, like, as human beings, we have the ability, literally, to build trees for human beings. You know what I mean? But the difference is that I'm going to use this particular word. We use our touch. And what I mean by that is I recently met this architect and such an incredible individual. Like I could talk to him for hours. And he was when I first met him, he says, "Oh, I'm fascinated by touch." And how he used his touch from sculpting to now start doing architecture. And it had me thinking, I'm like, damn, that's so true. Because if you don't come in with a touch or this artistic and creative perspective, it does just become four walls.
Mm,
But if you have ingenuity, if you have a bit more depth and science and all these other lessons that you've learned in your practices and your failures and your successes, you're then able to create spaces, literal spaces that are more conducive for what people are meant to do, you know?
right.
And I find that tremendously fascinating. And it really just had me thinking of, okay, so what do I do in terms of that? It may not just be like buying and finding a space to lease or whatever. Might be just creating that. It's like what they say about churches. You know, the church isn't the building, the church is the community.
Mm,
And I now that I say that again,
church.
like I can now even push away all of those like ideas of getting a loan or something like that because remember, those sharks are out there. They're ready to get you.
Mm.
But if you know how to swim with the sharks, then you're okay, you know? So it's about becoming one of them, like, but not also, yeah, anyway, I can get mixed up or whatever. But all I know to say is that it's really exciting when we start creating spaces that feel so much more welcoming and environments that feel that way where people feel comfortable enough to even ask those questions like, are you vegan or all that? Because deep down inside, they're curious. They want to try it out. They've just been scared.
Mm,
And ironically enough, their fears are the same reason why they say that you're crazy because they see that it's crazy for them to give it a try. But
exactly.
when they see you doing it, when they see all the other people that you've been meeting and doing it, like, how can you deny it? Just try it.
I love it, brother. I love it, man. So, Josh, man, thank you, bro. Thank you, Dorian, for coming on here. Thank you for speaking a word. Thank you for just giving us your heart, giving us your energy, giving us your enthusiasm for life, for living, and all that's giving for you right now in Canada. I love this new story of this new chapter you're writing in your book of life. I love where this is going, and yeah, looking forward to see where you grow from here, brother. Looking forward.
Thank you, Jerome. And right back to you, like, hey, I know this isn't the last time because I'm coming into Qigong practices. Hey, y'all better pull up 11 o'clock Eastern Standard, okay?
He
Change your
said,
life, I promise you.
he said, pull up, spin the block, pull up. Oh man.
No, because like sometimes you'll be talking and I really feel like I'm like we're in the same room and I'm just laughing when you say some things too. And I find myself like really getting into those places that you help us get into. So you've been such a wonderful facilitator of that space, such an incredible teacher in that. And I know, and that's why it's been a consistent 20 people pulling up every freaking one. And that is tremendous. So thank you so much, Jerome, not just for your practices, not just for your space, but everything that you are and everything that you are doing. We are always so honored to be in your presence. So thank you.
All right, brother. Always ascend.
Never
Always
pretend.
take care.
You
Take care.
too. Mwah.
All right.